All right, yes, so thank you everyone for coming to the meeting today. Just start off with an announcement. The Finance Society recently reached out to me and the other FMC executives, and they are doing an internal stock pitch competition. And they're looking for us to form a Stanford team for it. So it'd be 3 to 5 members. So the deadlines, again, they just spoke to us today about it. So the deadline to pick a company and actually form the team is this Thursday. They want an email. The first presentation with slides, they said of around 10 slides for the stock pitch, and then maybe 5 in the appendix for like any questions or any like additional supplement information would be the 28th. And then after that presentation, if you're in the top 4, you'd be a finalist. And they work along with the student managed fund judges. So it's a great experience if you're looking to get more into the stock pitch competition. So we're going to send out an email later today with more information from the Finance Society. And then an upcoming CFA Society of Stanford event is on November 5th. It's from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. It's how do I become a CFA charter holder and how will the charter enhance my career? So it's a great panel with many CFA holders. I think one of them works at FactSet, others at, some of the big 4. So it's a joint event that we're doing with the UConn FMC, us, Sacred Heart University, and then the CFA Society of Stanford. So we're going to send out an email about that as well.
And just so you know, we do this panel every fall. So this was always a big event for the FMC. You guys, when we did it in person, you would be the host of it. And we had it with the alumni, and we'd get up to 100 people sometimes at this event. So I really encourage you all to go.
Yeah. And if anyone has questions, we could talk about it. But for now, we have a guest speaker. It's Katie Sigg. She's a part-time MBA student here at UConn, and she's worked many roles in finance at PepsiCo. I believe she's been there for over 5 years, and she's currently a financial planning and analysis manager there. So welcome, Katie. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to speak with us, and we're excited to have you. I think she's buffering. Katie, can you hear us? Let me try messaging her. I think Parth, are you there?
Hello?
Yeah, Parth, I don't know if you want to do the Market Watch announcement, if Katie's having some connectivity issues. So if you want, you could share your screen for that.
Okay, let me just bring it up. Okay, you can see everything, right?
Yeah, I can see it, Parth.
So, okay, we did that. So what I wanted to announce is that we're going to be moving on to the next portion of our Market Watch sector. We just finished up with energy stocks. So I don't know if we have the Market Watch leader here today with us. Do we, George? I can't see the list.
Let me check. I think it's still Graham. I don't know if he's here today.
I don't think he's here.
That's okay. I'll just wrap it up quickly, just saying I want to move everybody to look into the material stock sector. You can see here on the right-hand side, it has been producing well in terms of growth comparison to the S&P 500. Not as much as information tech as you'd expect, but still surprisingly, it's there in the ranking. What material sector is about is just companies that are involved with the discovery, development, and processing of different raw materials, so like copper, iron, just to use industrial objects. It's a huge, broad range. So you can look into it a lot of different things. And some good examples are plastic, fertilizer, Paper, concrete, and metals, and especially now, they're more important than ever.
Hey everyone.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
go
So
ahead.
Katie's back. Okay.
Hey, sorry about that. I don't think I have the best internet, so apologies.
No problem. That's okay, Katie. I don't know if you had slides to present today, but I could make you the presenter if you'd like to share your screen.
Yeah, I have a couple slides, so let's see if I can get this working.
Okay, perfect.
All right, can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. So thanks for having me. Good to see, meet some new faces. Hi, Marlis. It's good to see you again. And I figured I would just kind of kick it off with just a little bit of like about me, so you guys can get to kind of know me, which is beyond the career. So my name is Katie Sigg Riesett, and as you pointed out, I am a part-time MBA UConn student. So I'm hoping to graduate in the spring of next year. So currently going through the same school remote learning that you guys are probably all going through and going through those challenges. But hope you guys are enjoying your time in school. So at least my journey. So I went to school down in Virginia at JMU. Which is crazy. It's been almost about 10 years. And I moved up to Washington, D.C., which is where I'm actually originally from. And so I actually had my first role there outside of college, working for a government contractor, a really, really small business, about 150 employees. But I actually, really enjoyed the probably 3 years that I spent there, just because, you get to wear so many different hats and really just get kind of exposed to different parts of the business, because you're kind of all in this together. It's this one team, and there's nobody else there to kind of push the work off onto. You got to really do it yourself. But you learn a ton with that. So I really actually enjoyed my experience there. And then after that, my life kind of brought me up to the New York area, and I was fortunate to land a role with Pepsi. And so I've been there for just over 5 years. It'll be I think 6 in next February. But I've really enjoyed my time there, and I think I've probably enjoyed it more than I expected. So I'll tell you guys a little bit more about my career in the second slide I have. My family life, which is really important to me. So me and my husband live in Stamford with our duck-tolling retriever, which you can see up at the top. And I also just have like a really massive family. I've got about six siblings, a couple steps, a couple, on my dad's side, but are really, really close with my family. And I will say the benefit of COVID, if there is one, is just kind of the additional time I get to spend with, my husband and my dog. You got to look for some of the positives. I think in what we're going through right now. And then a famous kind of like Pepsi question that we do, right? Your favorite food and beverage, as we are a massive food and beverage company. So I love my Diet Mountain Dew and then jalapeno Cheetos. If you haven't tried them, I definitely recommend them. And then in my free time, I used to love traveling. That took a little bit of a backseat this year, but Marlis and I had some fun in Dubai, and I typically try to get an international trip in at least once a year. So nowadays, just kind of exploring the wonderful land of Connecticut and everything that the states have to offer. And then I try to get into the podcast world, so I love The Daily. And then if anyone is a big golfer, I've gone into the Shotgun Start, as my husband has kind of taken over the podcast on the car rides. And then UConn, so part-time MBA school takes up a lot of time, but it's really enjoying kind of focusing on some areas that I didn't maybe like learn a ton about in undergrad, but I think really are applicable to my future career. So it's been great to kind of, schedule a curriculum on areas that I think I want to develop more. So that's about me. So jumping to my career at Pepsi. So I will say, I think Pepsi is like a little bit of like a different company. At least I would say I've only been at 2 companies, but they really support this, I would say, like wide range of experience for people to really get. And you'll kind of see that as I've held, 5 different roles over the 5 years. And so, and I think that really is attributed to, as a food and beverage company, their business is like super complex, right? So we take something from sugar or a potato, and we really take it through the whole supply chain and then bring that to our customers and our consumers. And so when you think about that process, it's very complex and very dynamic, and everything really has an impact on each other. And so because of that, they really support people getting experiences in different areas that impact our business, because it's not so simple. And so if you can build people with these skill sets that have a better understanding of our true, our go-to-market business, then it really benefits the company. So I kicked off my career at Pepsi in an advertising marketing role. And this was really a finance role to support our marketing functions. So when you think about, those big Pepsi Bowl, like Super Bowl ads, or when you go into the store and you see, a display of Pepsi, right? All of that work, there's got to be a budget around it, right? We can only spend a certain amount of dollars. And so I was really there to make sure that those teams, stayed on track and didn't overspend, but also didn't underspend, because you have kind of a target that you need to hit for the full year. And so I think, like, when I try to break this down into, what was my actual role and then what were my key takeaways, because there's different takeaways that you, I think, have from all of your roles. And so this one was just kind of an introduction into Pepsi as a business, right? This complex world. It was a great kind of, this is the new world you're in, get familiar with it. And so I was there for about 1.5 years and really enjoyed it. And I think that's where I started to be really excited about my time at Pepsi, because I started to learn that I like having this idea of like a tangible product that I can kind of see my work being related to in the market. And I think that's something that I've kind of learned in my career, is that I like these tangible, items and products that I can really like say, like, this is it. My husband's in like the mortgage business. I can grab a mortgage, right? Somewhat, but not really. So it's interesting that, as you kind of go through your career and your different roles, you start to learn about different items that you really like, and you'll start looking for those characteristics in other roles. So after that, I switched over to revenue management, which is basically a really cool way of saying pricing. So it's impressive that when you go into the marketplace and you see a pricing for, a Pepsi 20 ounce or a 12 pack of cans in the grocery store, there's a lot of data and analytics that goes behind that of what do we think the right price is that we are going to capture the consumers at. And so I did a lot of work working with our large format customers. So when you think about Acme or like Walmart or Target, right, these really big customers that bring in a large amount of consumers into their stores, really focusing on what their kind of pricing strategy was. And this really just helped me kind of understand what are like the pricing levers that you have that can impact your P&L, right? So when I take my pricing down, I'm going to be able to sell more volume, but I'm selling it at a lower price, versus if I can maybe sell it at a higher price, but less volume, how does that impact my P&L? But also, more importantly, as I'm currently learning, how does that impact your supply chain? I next moved to a beverage tax strategy role, which was my kind of like my one strategy role that I've had so far. And I don't know if anyone is from, the Philadelphia or Seattle area, but there were a large amount of beverage taxes that were put on a large portion of our portfolio at Pepsi. And so, the question was, we can't just operate our business as normal. We really need to, find a new way to kind of operate our business. And, this is a new norm. So how do we survive and how do we thrive in this new norm? So it was really partnering with those different markets and developing a strategy of, these are the new products that you should focus on. This is how you should execute it in the stores. And what was great about this is that I had most of my prior roles were very much at a kind of like a corporate level, right? I sat in an office. I was very disconnected kind of from our field operations. A large amount of the data I would get would just be pulling from the system. But this kind of took me out of that environment and put me into the field setting and actually going around into the market and speaking to my key account managers who are calling on these customers and really understanding like what they're seeing in the field. And it just it really opened my eyes to kind of always going that extra mile and connecting with the field personnel to get this different perspective that sometimes you lose if you just kind of sit behind a computer and analyze numbers all the time. So after that, I moved into another revenue management role similar to my first one, but just taking on more responsibility on kind of developing strategies across all of our beverage categories. So whether it was water, whether it was Gatorade or juice, but what were our pricing strategies within the marketplace for those customers? And then what I'm currently at right now is I'm an FP&A manager. So I basically consolidate our total bottling P&L for forecast, close, and also our annual operating plan. And this has been, I would say, the best role that I've ever had. I've learned a ton just because getting this full P&L exposure from our top line sales to our supply chain costs, all the way through A&M, I can really see how our business kind of flows from a P&L perspective, which has been great. And then also, it's been really cross-functional. So I work with, control and supply chain finance, and just like many parts of the organization, as you think about it, right? The P&L is made up of, multiple different parts of the organization. So working cross-functionally has been really helpful. And then decision making. This is one part of my career that I'm trying to get better at, right? As I take on more responsibility, is kind of, owning a decision-making process and feeling good about it. And this role has definitely kind of pivoted me into that direction. So as I look back kind of like on my, career, I think I try to list kind of like 4 key takeaways that I think that I've kind of developed and have really helped me. I would say first is like reflect on the roles that you have. So I can kind of go back and say, I really like this about this role not so much, and really like use that to, I would say, guide you in what your next role, your future roles that you want, what you could possibly want. And so I think sometimes like you can really hop from role to role, or you can be in a role for a little bit of a time as you get comfortable and you get really experienced in that. But what's helped me is to just actually take a second and say, what do I really like about this role? And say that it's okay to not like pieces of it, because it's going to help you kind of in your future decide of, what path you want to go. For me, I really like roles that are challenging and are really big learning opportunities. So I like to be challenged. I like to be a little bit stressed, especially in the first, I would say, 6 months as you're learning something new. But that's something that keeps me interested. And so for me, that's something that I'll always look for is, as I look for my future roles, what are items that are key learning opportunities that kind of fill gaps within my experience. And then saying yes to development opportunities. So I'm not a great public speaker, but I try to say yes to opportunities that can kind of help me grow skills that I'm not good at. And you can be, I always think when you're uncomfortable, it's probably a good thing because that means you're probably developing and growing. You just have to kind of say yes to those different items. And then I think lastly, what I've learned through this whole process is that you really own your own career, right? So take steps in building your career out in the way that you want it. And it's no one's going to do it for you. So whether it's reflecting on it, whether it's connecting with people that you are interested in their roles. But really, you have to put that on yourself and in kind of owning what you want your future to look like. So I'll pause there. I know that was a lot, but feel free to, ask questions on, anything career-wise or specific.
Katie, I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
So one would be you started with a small company and now you're with a huge company. Can you tell us a little about the two cultures? It sounds like you fit in very well at Pepsi, in the bigger company, which is humongous. But what kind of change was that you found with your behavior or your networking within the company? Because very successful, you've gotten different responsibilities. How would you know, if you gave any advice to the students, how would you know if you fit into a small or big company? Sometimes when you go for your first job, you just take whatever you can get. But
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's totally fine, especially like as you get your career started. Sometimes you just have to go out and try something and you'll learn if you like it or you don't like it, and then you kind of know where to go from there. So I was actually kind of like a little bit nervous to go into Pepsi, as I came from a small company, and I really enjoyed it, right? I liked that I knew almost everyone in the company. I knew who to go to for information. And I had a really strong relationship with my boss and my counterparts and my peers. And so I think I went into Pepsi with a little bit of a, how is this going to be with a bigger company, but also with the understanding that with a bigger company, I think comes bigger opportunities. And I thought that the trade-off with it was worth it to give it a shot. And I think what I learned is that if I look at Pepsi as a whole, right, the company is massive. And I was like, I'm going to get lost and I'm going to get swallowed up. And I'm, like, who am I going to be within Pepsi? And then as you kind of break it down, right, you get into your teams with common goals, and I think that is where I get the environment of kind of a smaller company, is that I have a really tight team that I work with in order to accomplish our goals. And so although it's a smaller team in a massive big company, because it is a smaller team, I almost get that kind of small business feel, but I'm working on these probably bigger projects, and I have kind of the additional opportunity to move on to other roles because I'm in a part of this bigger company. So I think kind of the team environment that I'm fortunate to have at Pepsi, which I think probably, a lot of other companies might also have too, that kind of satisfies that small business feel where you have a really great working relationship with not only your managers, but your peers. And you can always still take on, additional projects and tasks. It's just more maybe for your team versus for the company as a whole when you're looking at a small business.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Katie, I have a question for you. So you said like after each role at Pepsi, you would reflect and kind of understand what you enjoyed and disliked. Was there any role that really you miss from your past roles?
So I would say not ones that I miss. I love revenue management. I love pricing, probably because I spent so much time there. But what's really great is that I've been able to see kind of that experience benefit me in my current role, because I'm looking at a full P&L, and the top line story has a lot to do with pricing. And so I have a counterpart who is strictly focused on, our revenue and our volume story. And so although it's not my main focus, it helps me actually understand, because of my history and my prior roles, I'm able to understand, when he's calling out drivers, I can understand what he's saying because of my prior experience. And so I think I probably won't go back to a revenue management role just because I've had so much experience, but it's really cool to kind of see the different experience kind of build upon each other, and you can really reference it back, in the role that you're in. And I would say, in my current role, I took a lateral into the role, so I kind of stayed at the same position, but I moved into it, and that was strictly for. This was a role that was known to have a really big learning curve, and I realized I had kind of a full P&L. I lacked that experience, and so this was a role that I knew that I wanted and was kind of willing to say, like, hey, I'm not gonna. There's more to kind of a career than just like progression, right? It's more about getting the right experience at the right time. And so I think that's something that helped me, is not being scared of kind of being not being scared to kind of go a different path than maybe normal people would go. But in the long run, it's going to benefit me by kind of getting that experience that I was lacking.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
How has COVID changed your product mix at PepsiCo? Has it changed or has it not changed due to COVID?
Yeah, it definitely has changed a lot. So if you think about our like segments of business, so we do a large amount in this the convenience channel. So your 7-Elevens or your gas stations, but then we also have a lot of product in your food service accounts, right? So when you go out to Panera or even like the Regal movie theaters, right? There's Pepsi being served there. As COVID has come and really shifted our preferences and the way that we live our lives, our mix has also shifted in that same way. So as consumers are staying at home more, right, they're purchasing more at the grocery store, we're starting to see a large percentage of our sales shift over into the grocery channel versus our C&G or our convenience channel is now much smaller, right? So people aren't traveling as much, especially early on. There wasn't as much driving, and then when you think about like movie theaters or amusement parks or anything, stadiums, those parts of our business have kind of gone down to almost nothing. And so I think what's great about Pepsi, and it's really come to light during this, is that we have a really diverse mix of products and also locations where we sell our product. And so when one part of our business is maybe struggling, we're fortunate to be able to have another part of our business pick up to try to help offset some of those declines. And then lastly, I think it's even more interesting that we can see a shift of consumer products even within our beverage portfolio. So value-added protein is a beverage like similar to like muscle milk. And so as people are staying at home and trying to get more nutrition that way, we've also seen a shift into kind of that consumer product, which is not something that I probably would have, called out in the very beginning of COVID. But, we expected kind of the shift across channels, but we're also seeing a shift in consumer preferences too.
Hi, yes, I have a question. What do you think about Pepsi-Cola's communications channels? Since they're such a large company, do you think that that a lot of information is often lost through all the points of contact, or do they do a good job of communicating what needs to be done and what can be better worked on?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's probably always ways of improvement through communication. I think we do we do really well through kind of like email and touch points like that. And then we constantly have town halls that really try to, bring everyone along in like the message and what we're working on. I think one thing that we're trying to work on now, which is maybe less communication, but more just like data, is bringing up our data system. So we have a large amount of systems that stores our data, that reports our data, that houses our data within the field. and bringing those really all together, because as you do kind of analysis and performance reporting, it really depends on all levels of data. And so that's one thing that we're working on now, is trying to have those, systems like communicate better, so that we can do a better job at benchmarking our performance. And it's a long process, right? If you think about how massive the company is, and right, the full supply chain process, it's a lot of complexities that we're working on. So it's like a multi-year project. But in the end, we're hoping that you can have kind of different line of sight into different levels of the organization, and kind of one clear, concise.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I have one question. So at what point in your life did you decide, finance was for you?
Yeah, so it's a great question. If you had asked, what I love about that is that if you had asked me when I had graduated from undergrad, if I would go back to school, I would have told you, no way, absolutely not. School was a challenge for me, and once I was probably at Pepsi for about 2 or 3 years, I think what helped me was being able to kind of connect the dots between like a real life experience and the education part, and pieces of my career and experience that I probably wanted to kind of expand on. And so I think that, right, there's different parts of the finance world. I would say my world is probably more like operations finance, versus you could have, more like investment banking and corporate finance. And so I would say probably 2 or 3 years, into Pepsi, I think that's where I kind of really was like, this is an area that I'm really interested in. And that I kind of want to continue down this path, which is kind of exactly the same time frame that I decided to go back to school. And so, people go back to school for different reasons, right? They go back to kind of pivot into a different career choice. Mine was more of like, I finally found something that I was really interested in and passionate about, and that I wanted to kind of develop those skill sets more, to kind of help my career at PepsiCo. But if you had asked me back in like 2010, if I was going to go to MBA school, I would have said you were crazy. But things always change, and you start finding areas that you're more interested in, and that kind of changes your preference in going back to school and such.
Yeah, I just have a question related to that. Could you maybe talk a little bit more about why you decided to pursue your MBA, and how you think, or how it relates to your long-term career goals?
Yeah, absolutely. So over the past few years, I think one area that I wanted to grow and develop more in was, or probably 2 areas, is strategy and also management styles. And so you can see, like, I had a little bit of strategy experience, and I think having that mindset and that kind of ability to, apply a framework and think through a framework and kind of answer a question and give options, that was something that I wanted to develop more. And so that was one part of going back to school, was, can I develop that skill set even more? A second part was I started to manage people, and that was a skill set that I really didn't fully develop in my undergraduate degree. And so as I've come back to school, I've taken a large amount of classes that are, about leadership and, negotiations, and just understanding, how to motivate people within the workforce. That has helped me, I think, in my at least last 2 roles, largely. And then I think it's probably going to help me even more as I go forward. As I think a lot of like technical skills I can, I've been able to develop and build, in the roles themselves, but it's kind of those 2 key areas, management styles and also strategy, and just thinking of that different way of thinking has really helped going back to school.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I liked how you said that when you go to another job or another task, like when you went through your different jobs or your different responsibility at PepsiCo, that you didn't necessarily know how to do P&L. You didn't necessarily know everything about that job. And I think it's important for students to know when they go for jobs, you don't have to know everything about that job, but you love to challenge yourself and you love to learn. And I can, you can just see that with what you're talking about. So even though you didn't know everything about that job you went to, you knew you could accomplish it because you loved the challenge. I thought that was very positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're never expected to kind of know everything, I think, going into a role. I think what people really like to hear is like your interest in it. So if something is exciting about the role and you go at it saying, yeah, this role is interesting to me for these reasons. This is the skill set that I can have and I can bring to that role. And then, these are the things that I'm hoping to kind of build and take away from it. But overall, this is something that makes me excited because in the end, right, we got to go to work every day. You want to find something that you're interested in and, that you're excited to work on during the day. So I think it's always good to kind of, remember that. And if you don't like something, you can always have the option to pivot and find something new. But always reminding yourself of, reflecting on what you like about it and keep going at it or changing it up.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Hi, Katie. I have a question for you.
sure.
First, great presentation. Thank you for your time. Thanks you, George, for having her on. She's been great. And so my question is, there's been a trend of corporate leaders that go from big companies, not necessarily like C-suite, but like, I don't know, like senior management, and maybe that's something you're interested in. They have kind of gone to like the startup phase in different companies, like they either leave corporate America to go start their own companies or join teams. Do you see that in your future, or are you really focused on either staying with PepsiCo or maybe another company like that?
Yeah. You know what? There are still some roles at Pepsi that I'm really interested in. Like supply chain, that's kind of an area that I haven't been exposed to a lot. And so, I think I still want to kind of develop that experience a little bit more. But I would say, never say never, right? For me, rotating, to a new company and kind of being able to take, probably my full kind of, from top line to supply chain to FP&A, right? I'll have a broad range of experience that I can probably take to maybe another smaller business that would be really helpful. Yeah, I don't know. Like right now, like I definitely am really happy where I'm at. And I think that's probably because I just see the growth potential, which is what I really value. And as Miles was saying, right, being challenged. So I think until I'm not challenged and I don't think that I can learn anymore, I'll probably stay, where I'm at. But I think, constantly reevaluating the roles in your position and answering that question of, am I being challenged? Is this rewarding? And, the moment that doesn't come back as a yes, I think that's where you have to kind of reevaluate. And I think I would say, like, I love, the consumer packaged good industry. As I said, right, I like a tangible product. So I think no matter what, I think I have found an industry that I really like. So I picture myself there probably long term. But as for, the actual company and, size, that's to be determined.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions for Katie? All right, Katie, thank you very much for coming in today. It was great to hear about all the roles you've had within finance and then, some advice on how to reflect. So thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Katie.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right, Parth, if you want to go back, it looks like we still have some time to do more of the Market Watch competition.
Yeah, sure. Let me just share my screen. Since there are not that many of the Market Watch participants here, it'll be a little bit short.
Yeah.
All right. just going into the rankings, we still have Graham at the first place.
Yeah.
And it looks like he hasn't changed much in his portfolio. He still has a lot of value in NIO and Amazon, as well as Plug. He's made a lot of money so far, actually, around 25% return.
Yeah, I see that. What's does anyone know what NIO is? That's his biggest mover.
Chinese electric car.
Oh, EV, right?
Okay. Oh, Khaled, do you know of it?
Yeah, it's a Chinese electric car company. They're doing pretty good. Every company right now, like the hype is to try to go after Tesla. So, but apparently they're doing good as far as their numbers and projections for the future. I think they're China's number one seller. Tesla is pretty up there, but I think they're China's number one EV, and China's the biggest EV market in the world. So their share price is pretty good for now, at least. But I'm not an expert on electric cars, so that's all I have to say.
Well, then
Yeah, their prices has been soaring lately. For like the past couple months, it's been pretty volatile, but it's definitely been having some significant returns. Guess we'll see if it stays that way.
yeah. So then they have cars on the road right now. They have products on the road.
Seems like they do. I heard there was one EV company in America that turned out to be fraudulent.
Nikola, yeah, that's Nikola.
Yeah.
They ended up being fraudulent.
So what happened was they had a big trailer showing I think it was their EV truck going down a hill, except the vehicle was in neutral the whole time. The engine wasn't on, and they hid that information to the buyers.
Wow, that's
Yeah, not only that, but also their specs. Like they said that it was already ready for production and all that stuff, but it was not. There's a lot of issues. They also sued Tesla. That didn't go well. So they're having a lot of issues right now.
Kenny put he's at 100% buy on SBE, and he's made a great return so far. He has like maybe a 20% of his portfolio into it, but it's working out for him so far.
Yeah.
This is like the 1 month growth looks pretty good. Then I don't think Jason's here, but George, maybe I can call on you.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we've transitioned into energy. I've never really invested in energy, so just, went with two of the biggest. I know Marlis, last time we were talking about Jim Cramer on Mad Money. He's been talking a lot about PE out of Texas and how well they're doing. I think a lot of it just comes with, opening of the economy in many areas of the country. So, I mean, like more oil is being used, a lot of natural gas, heating as, the months get colder. So, I think it's good for energy, and I think that's partly why I've been doing fairly well.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely paying off for you. And then you have, is it EPD?
Yeah, that's another company out of Texas. Again, it's oil and natural gas.
Okay. I mean, you can still hold on to this as long as you want, but no longer buying for energy sector, and then now just go on to buying materials.
I think
looks like
the airports start to getting a lot of business. The petroleum stocks are going to go up. Because I believe it's petroleum, but like 90% of all petroleum goes towards transportation. So as soon as the airlines start returning to normal, those things should. It might be petroleum. It could be. I believe it's petroleum. There was this map that they showed me in my environmentals class that like broke down all the uses of all the different kinds of fossil fuels and like how much energy they actually waste. So I believe it's petroleum though. It goes to air travel.
interesting. Yeah, that definitely counts as both material and I'd say energy, because I'd see oil definitely as a big factor within like an industrial society. When it goes to like making buildings, big projects like that, you definitely need oil. So looking to the market watch, not much going else for pretty much except for Graham. It's anybody's game. Maybe someone else can catch up to Graham sometime soon, but he's been holding the lead for quite a while. Does anyone else want to bring anything up? All right, George, what should we do now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, it's been 50 minutes. I know people still have midterms coming up. So Marlis, if you have any announcements, I know we already talked about the CFA event coming up on November 5th. I know next week we're likely going to have Larissa Burke come in. She is part of the MSFRM, so she's going to talk about that, the 4+1, maybe some alumni success from the program. So, same time as usual, Tuesdays, 4 p.m.
Yeah, I just want to say that I talked to Judy, and she's just wants you to know that she's willing to help you guys with anything, resumes, all that. But they continue to have the Tuesday people coming in. I can't remember who they have this Tuesday, but let her know if you need help with anything.
Yeah. Let me put Judy her link for appointments in the chat.
Thanks.
Marlis, do you know when the teams for CFA will come out?
Probably the end of the week.
End of the week. Okay.
So that's a link for everyone to schedule an appointment with Judy Stewart, the Stanford career consultant.
Yeah, she says there's a lot of opportunities out there, and some of you have been interviewing for some of those. So
Yeah, I mean, she's great. You name it, like LinkedIn help, mock interviews for HR, behavioral interviews. I mean, it's good to get some practice in, learn how to present yourself well, how to answer certain questions. There's definitely a method to interviewing, and she's going to get you set up for that.
well, and one thing I've been doing all these webinars and everything. One wise words of wisdom for looking for jobs: portray yourself as a problem solver and think of an area that you solve some kind of problem within your life. Employers like to see that, you can get your way through an issue and figure out how to get to the end. And problem solving is a very important characteristic that they like to have in people.
Yeah.
And just like Katie said too, she loves challenges. And even if you don't know everything about the job, some of the achievements you've had within your classes here at UConn that are good illustrations of how you can tackle things that you don't know about, and then you can excel in that. So don't forget about those experiences that you've had.
All right, well, thank you for everyone for coming.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
you.
Next week.
Thank you, George.